Hello everyone. Hello everyone. So I'm glad to be here, and I have pretty great panelists today who will be joining me to discuss and basically see what is myths and what are the truth in the blockchain. So as the first speaker, I'd like to announce Ethan Pierce. So Ethan is a serial entrepreneur and also currently the NFT Factory Paris co-founder. Welcome. Also on our stage is Michael Bjørnlund. So Michael is running Rockstart, and currently in charge of the Emerging Tech Fund. So I guess from the investment perspective, Michael will be speaking about where to invest, what makes sense in blockchain, and so on. Welcome. And the third speaker is Mārtiņš Beņķītis from Gravity Team. So Gravity Team is one of the most successful Latvian startups in the area and then they are basically providing crypto markets with liquidity and also a great market maker. Please take stage. So guys, I want to open up this panel with straightforward question. So there's a lot of people who would say that immediately when they hear Web3 or they hear blockchain, they would immediately think about crypto. Is that always true? And can you mention one example where this is actually not completely related? Can you mention an example which is something different, a different use of the technology, if you will? Ethan, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, with Web3, obviously the technologies, the things that are being solved through NFTs and DAOs and social tokens and all the stuff that we can talk about when we talk about Web3, the technology behind that is obviously blockchain enabled, in the sense that we're dealing with some kind of tokenization, we're dealing with data that's being stored in a blockchain. But the reality is most of these are not crypto conversations. It's maybe crypto powered. But when you are one of the 2 million people that went to go see Ed Sheeran in London or Paris in the stadium concert, and you had to use his app to show a QR code for your ticket to get in the building, you had no idea that that was an NFT ticket, and they had just destroyed ticket scalping by moving to NFT tickets. So we don't have to be talking about crypto. There's no crypto in that, apart from the fact that technologically it's there. It's basically like going to Amazon and buying something and not really having to understand how PHP or MySQL or online payments or anything works. You don't need to know how this stuff works today in order to use most of the things we do in tech. Most Web3 should not, although still maybe does, require technical understanding. We'll get to a point where that doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, thank you. Mārtiņš, can you share some?
Yeah, I have a bit divided feelings about separating the blockchain from crypto, so to say, because cryptocurrencies and tokens are used to kind of disseminate and spread the ownership of the network, the value of the network into these tokens. And if you don't really use cryptocurrencies and tokens per se, then what you have is a kind of so-called enterprise blockchain world where it's the validators are usually from one entity, and they are kind of controlling the whole process, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, and can work in certain cases. But so there are applications in supply chain, there are applications in identity management, but you have to note that in the end, it's still one organization that basically controls the flow of information and also its value. So in the end, it just loses some of the characteristics that blockchain usually has, crypto usually has, which is to distribute the value and decentralize the ownership. But there are some applications, but it's a bit different animal.
Okay. I got your point. Michael, please.
Yeah, you mentioned supply chain. I come from shipping days before joining investing in startups and scale-ups. And so that's many, many years ago that we looked at, you could say, automating the document flow when you transport goods at sea. And if you, like I have worked in more remote areas and see the insane amount of corruption and fraud taking place with goods being transported and stamped by people and fake information following the goods, and therefore also the title to the goods. That was a very early application of blockchain where we tried in the shipping industry to actually do away with that. So that's just one example of a practical use case for us personally in Rockstart, where we invest in the fund. We do not actually look at crypto. We look at a lot of other positive impact applications of blockchain. So that could be in digital identity. It could be safe storage of health records for us as individuals. When you think about how many times your personal data is at risk and it can be tampered with and fall into the wrong people's hands, I think blockchain as a technology can really help find great use cases to bring back that ownership and control to the individual.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, I think Finland actually has built their state-level supply chain on logistic chain on blockchain, so you can see those applications even in state level and so on.
Yeah, I think one complicated thing about it is though that if all the validators are the same entity, how is the concept different than a database? And there are maybe some ways how you cannot falsify the information, but you have to rely that this one entity that controls the whole network is going to be trustworthy and operate in the interests of the whole network participants.
No, I agree with that. It does present other challenges that at some point in time it might not be safe enough.
You're also seeing, though, that things like TradeLens from IBM and other companies that tried to build enterprise, private blockchain solutions to this are losing that battle. And most of the great applications of utility in Web3 or in blockchain solutions, we're trying to leverage only public blockchain solutions now because that does provide consensus protection in that sense. But we have to move past the crypto developer, tech people owning crypto and blockchain and Web3. Because otherwise, most of the people who want to leverage this, like after this is Mārtiņš from Air Baltic, you can buy an NFT that is now their rewards and loyalty program, a little planie. They have a standout here. And so all these different ways we can talk about that Web3 and NFT and blockchain type stuff can be useful to everyone else. You should not have to understand how it works. There should be zero tech. That's why ChatGPT exploded like 2 months ago, because you could go to a web page, see a form, type in something, and have an amazing amount of technical power answer you. But you didn't have to understand shit. Like, you didn't have to understand how any of that worked. The problem is, yesterday I helped onboard somebody into an NFT. They didn't have a wallet. It took us 30 minutes to go to wallet, to fund the wallet, to come back to the wallet, to mint the NFT, then transfer the NFT to a different wallet, to do all this kind of stuff. That's BS when all you want is the utility. So I think it's super important that we create we encourage the foundational values of what crypto brings through the blockchain and Web3, but we get away from everyone else having to understand how it works. That's a horrible problem. It's why we don't have adoption. It's why there are only 50, maybe million people in the world with a crypto wallet. Maybe 100 million at most, because it's too hard to do. We get past that, and then we get all the cool utility.
Absolutely.
So I love I completely agree. We have to keep the good stuff, but right now it's too hard to use.
Absolutely.
Oh, and kudos to Air Baltic. You can even see the corporate adoption of the technology. So, and they're really utilizing the NFTs as customer engagement tool, which is amazing, real use. Michael, when looking to investments in Web3 and blockchain companies, what are the things you are looking at? Is that just which company can grow the fastest, or is there some correlation of just doing traditional VC investments in tech startups?
Yeah, so I will focus on two things, because aside from every other startup we look at, you look at the team and what do they know about the space they're in, et cetera. But specific to Web3 startups or blockchain-based startups, I'm faced with two dilemmas, I would say. First off is that many of them are actually raising funds in untraditional ways. So, for example, by issuing tokens, which in most VCs, they are founded on the basis of some cash in a fund structure where you just basically pay in some money to the startup and you get an equity stake in return. So I have to turn down a lot of potentially quite interesting startups because I'm not allowed to invest by other means than that. So that is inherently one of the challenges I have, even if I'm quite curious about it. And that might lead me to the second point, when you're also looking at any hype cycle. Right now you have hundreds and hundreds of startups built on generative AI. Not too long ago, everything had to mention Web3 in their pitch decks, and not too long before that, everyone mentioned AI. So of course, looking through the hype and what's real, and connected to that is also challenging me. I'm a 47-year-old old dog. What do I know about the future societies, how we live in those societies, what Gen Z and after that, what they will require? So I'm really trying to challenge myself to see, yeah, I think it's crap, but it's going to be a way of us living and doing stuff in the future. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Mārtiņš, you have bootstrapped your company, but also looking at potentially as angel investors to some new startups. How do you see the...
Well, to me personally, and partially also for Gravity team, the way how we see the space and what's the biggest value contribution is finding better money, finding sound money, creating sound money. And when understanding where to go in the future, I like to look back in the past and kind of see how money has developed. I mean, for me, I do believe that money is one of the most important inventions of humankind, maybe after agriculture. Internet is also quite important, but like virtually everything that we do when we exchange monetary energy comes around money, and yet at the same time we understand so little about it. Like when I was a kid, I asked my mom, like, hey, she used to work in a bank at a cashier's desk, and I was like, hey mom, like, who creates money? Like, where does it come from? Like, I don't know. She doesn't know because like we don't really dig into it, right? But we use it every day. So money has evolved over time. Like back in the days, we just exchanged salt or other kind of items one by one. Then we basically had a gold attached, and the gold was used by everyone in the world today. Well, that followed by golden standards, basically where the US dollar was attached to the value of gold, and that was the world order back then. And nowadays it's fiat money, where basically everyone, governments just print money and push it into the society to sort of control the economy, but also at the same time creating some bad attributes for it. And I do believe that we're not at the end of the evolution of money, and there's still so much that needs to be done to create a better functioning society. And I don't see any other better option where this evolution could go in future rather than it being kind of state or a form of a cryptocurrency. Because it allows for decentralization of power, and such kind of tool as money is important to be decentralized so that it would benefit the whole society instead of just benefiting some actors that have access to the printing of it. So for us as Gravity team, if you ask, that's what we're looking at most. So actually we invest a lot in I'm not going to be like not going to surprise you in any way. We invest a lot in Bitcoin, we invest in Ether, because we really believe that today those blockchains, those cryptocurrencies have a lot of potential to change the future of money. But of course, they're not perfect, and there's still a problem of like, how do you create something stable? People want to have a stable mean of exchange. People want security, and Bitcoin or Ether doesn't really get there. But there's all kinds of science taking place in the field to figure out how to actually do it. And that's what we are researching. That's what we are personally also working on in Gravity team to some form of extent. And yeah, that's what we're also super excited about, because if you sort out that part about the fabric of society, the value is enormous.
Yep. So Ethan, you have been a startup founder yourself and exited some companies, also I guess invested in some companies. So when you look at potential investments in blockchain space, what do you value? are you bullish on sort of your side of NFTs and then more maybe that technology part, or is it broader?
There's a ton there. And I love so many of the points that you brought up with, I think sometimes people can look at people who are really into crypto and super excited about crypto or blockchain or now Web3 and think, these people are a little off. They're way into this idea. And I think part of that is because at a foundational level, when you understand how much money really, not money in the sense of capitalism, but money in the sense of the transfer of value runs our lives. Everything that we do is value going from one side to another, whether you're buying groceries or putting gas in the car or whatever that happens to be. And the system we have is not perfect at all, and there are ways to maybe improve that. And so I think when you start getting into that and see how it can be improved with these technologies, because the blockchain literally defines itself as a record of the transfer of value. That's why this is such a big deal, because you have something and you give it to me, the blockchain records that transaction. So that's why this all gets really exciting in terms of for the people who are really into it, because it's about thinking about that future idea of how these systems can be better. And so I very much am, I've been in this since 2015, which for me feels like I got into it late. Technically it's rather early, but not as early as so many other people. And the message I always love to tell audiences like this is, if this is the first time you've heard anything about crypto or blockchain stuff, or that you're starting to get interested in Web3, you are still super early. You're in front of everybody else in the world. 99.999% of the world out there is not actually doing anything in this space yet. They don't have wallets, they're not building stuff, they're not investing, or they're not, whatever it is that they're doing. So if this is something that interests you, you are by no means late to the party. Everything is still left to be built. Maybe some of the easy or early money is obviously, those opportunities are gone, but there are all kinds of new opportunities to come, and all the solutions, all the startups and stuff like that are left to be built. So to answer your question about the investment piece of that, there's still so much left to be built. So there's so much to get excited about. And so for me, what I really love, again, is in this concept of Web3, which is the evolution of the web that we have now, which is very much top-down. You've got centralized actors like a YouTube or a Facebook or a Google or an Uber or whatever providing you with value, and that's great. But there's a way to do almost all of that where it becomes maybe not completely decentralized, but more decentralized, where it's more of a instead of having an Uber where, Uber is the one who's finding the driver and connecting you and you're paying them and the driver's getting some of the money but not all of it, and Uber's getting most of that, or not to pick on Uber, but any of these models that we have, technically we can revisit that in a decentralized way where maybe a platform connects you, but most of the value transfer is actually between you and the other person. There's ways to make all that happen. So that gets really exciting. So I think on the investment side, what interests me with Web3 and stuff now is all the ways we're reimagining the way the internet currently runs our daily lives and all the things we do, that we can do that differently. Mm-hmm. And with Web3 today, some of the most interesting things are around digital identity. The fact that it used to be your phone number, that was your unique identifier, then it was your email address, may still be those things, but now your wallet, your digital wallet that contains your whatever those assets are, but like you have your, again, I'll go back to Plainies because it's an example we can understand here. Because it's Air Baltic and it's their rewards program, that thing in your wallet provides you with value. It identifies you as a rewards loyalty customer of this particular brand. So I think digital identity is interesting. Very soon you'll be able to connect, at one point your diplomas, which will be issued as NFTs because they prove it's authentic and that it's yours. You'll connect to LinkedIn, you'll connect your wallet, and now instead of 500,000 people lying about the fact that they went to Harvard, all those diplomas will be validated in real time because it's either in your wallet or it's not. Supply chain and logistics is a huge one. Everything fashion and luxury and physical items where we can create digital twins, which means I like New Balance. And so these come with an NFT where I can actually go to the New Balance store, scan a QR code, and they're like, you're a New Balance customer. We're going to give you 10% off today because you're a New Balance customer. I can also go next door to the Nike store, and if they wanted to scan the QR code to my wallet, they could also see that I'm a New Balance loyal customer and go, well, we'll give you 10% today too, because we want you to try Nike. That kind of stuff is super cool. Then I can go into a metaverse if that's my thing, and my avatar can wear the same shoes because it's a digital twin. Like, there's all kinds of really interesting ways where in this building of community engagement, between brands, between creators, whether it's YouTube or Substack or bloggers or podcasters or musicians and digital artists, creating more proximity between them and their fans or their customers through this thing that NFTs, especially NFTs, are bringing. They're not just monkey JPEGs. They're really cool to all the ways that they can solve this problem of these things. That's the stuff that excites me, because everything that you use on the internet, we're going to rebuild using Web3.
Michael, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree that this is early adoption still, even if we've heard about the metaverse, Web3 for quite a few years, blockchain for way longer than that. Of course, inherently in that it's early days also means that it's still super risky. Because another key point you made, Ethan, actually was around utility. So why on earth do we even bother? And that we're still finding. There will be tons and tons of exploration around what may or may not be useful, have actual utility value. But I think the train is definitely flying off on the tracks, and we are going that way. Much more Web3 utility, much more use cases also of NFTs. And back to the point of me trying to challenge myself in, okay, why am I not an early adopter? Why am I not doing what you're just saying? I'm working with tons of companies that do it, not tons, a few companies, but looking at hundreds of companies. So I want to try and push myself. But this stuff is not for me, right? It's for, I can't really see the age group out here, but probably 1/3 at least of the group out there will be users of this in the future, and that's what we have to back and invest and support.
Yeah, for a lot of the corporates that, so through the factory and through the CryptoAssets Institute, which is the main thing I do in this space, advising corporates, brands and stuff on this, that's the discussion. Because you're in a room full of 40, 50, 60-year-old executives who are like, yeah, really? Is that something we want to do? And the reality is, this is a Gen Z and Gen Alpha conversation. Yep. Gen Z was born into the internet, and Gen Alpha was born into smartphones. And you don't know a world without those things. And that is the demographic that will fully embrace Web3, because you're already native to these things.
I'm just thinking about that, and actually it's a good example. So for the younger generation who actually lives in Web3 gaming space, which is also big, right? So they do transactions inside that ecosystem, paying for the skins or whatever tools they're buying in those games using cryptocurrencies. So will they actually go out of that system and then sort of transfer those into euros or USD? Is there a point, Mārtiņš, where this will no longer be needed?
I remember when I was a kid, I would play RuneScape, and then I would get the actual money there. I already started doing some arbitrage over there, and then I actually earned a lot of money in the game, and yeah, then you could just sell it out. Then I just found a friend who wants to buy these coins from me, and because I knew him, then he just gave me the money, and so I sold it. Surely that now that you have crypto currencies and all kinds of Web3 solutions, you can just earn tokens in the games and easily sell those assets off in secondary market, and that's already happening. There's a big movement in the Philippines where there's like a lot of gaming going on and people actually working in these games. So yeah, this is already kind of a reality that's happening. I think the challenge about these Web3 games is that the tokenomics have already been worked out, and yeah, it kind of works, but you actually need to make the games fun and good and actually fun to play. And it seems that the big game developers are not yet really jumping in that much. But I would wish for them to do so and actually participate in the Web3 gaming movement. To move the whole industry to the next level.
But let me guys just mix up this discussion. So it's not always everything's not always shiny and bright, right? There's also a lot of skepticism. So if we are looking what is happening in the world, you're looking at crackdowns on especially crypto in the US. Now Europe just came out with the MiCA regulation, which is obviously a good set of rules in which you can sort of operate. What is the dark side? Do you see that that dark side and that trust issues that we still have. And when you go to, I don't know, speak with some government institutions or something like that, you feel that skepticism, right? It's always there, and I'm sure you have felt it. So what is behind that? Is that just a fear of unknown, or is there some real behind that as well?
I think there's definitely a reasonable there's a reasonable doubt that governments are shedding over crypto, in the fact that usually these scams and these hacks, they actually oftentimes take place in centralized venues. So if you look at 2022, which was a quite crappy year for crypto, you had all these, you had like Celsius, you had FTX, you had Luna. A lot of these projects went down due to too much of centralization. FTX was a centralized exchange that was just cooking up books and straight out scamming people. Celsius did kind of similar thing, and Luna was as well controlled by, in the end, was controlled by Do Kwon, who was getting a little bit too greedy with his project and thus creating a massive crash for his currency. And I think the space should definitely be governed in a bit, and it should be governed as far as the centralization reaches out as well. So MiCA is coming out. I think it's a great thing. It's going to regulate the exchanges. It's going to regulate the brokers, so that people who actually deposit their money in these centralized venues that are actually controlled by someone that rely on someone on being able to trust some entity. Unfortunately, not all crypto is decentralized yet. So those centralized points should be well governed, because that will just take a lot of effort away from, I don't know, also from players like us, who we also have to put our assets and trust these centralized parties. So regulation is definitely a good thing, and it should come in. And I think what MiCA is doing is reasonable. They're creating a completely new set of rules, instead of like saying, hey, this thing is a security or this thing is a commodity, so it has to act like securities and commodities. But they're saying, hey, this thing is a crypto asset, it's a digital asset, and it has to have a new set of rules. And it's a great opportunity for all the countries here in Europe to actually adopt these regulations and to adopt them well. And it's a chance. Last 4 or 5 years was an opportunity for private companies and individuals to succeed in this space. Now it's growing bigger, and now the opportunity is for the countries to jump ahead, to adopt good regulation, and to actually be at the forefront of innovation of crypto.
Mile, you want to step in?
Yeah.
Put some more dirt in it.
I was just going to say that we're also trying, or not we, but the regulators are trying to regulate for the unknown. Because this is a train which is moving extremely fast. We can even compare it to generative AI. So what do we do right now? What is responsible AI in that sense? Are you going to regulate your way out of it, or is the tech train going to run and you're going to trust the people building it, that their moral compass is in order? So you have to have regulators, especially when you deal with a lot of opportunity for financial fraud, big scam cases. But it is regulating for the unknown. In a way, the regulators are trying to, what do you say, pave the way in front of them as we're walking it, right? It's a little bit uncertain which way we're going to go. So I think also for regulators, it's going to be a minefield. And there's going to be more cases coming up with people that are just hustling, big fraud cases. Hopefully there will be a lot more successful use cases. But it is clear that we need the regulators to try everything they can do. But I think they're going to be way behind, basically always.
Ethan, jump in. You have extensive experience. Can you speak a bit about that US-Europe comparison? Is this a time for Europe? Can we actually benefit from how things are shaping out in the U.S.
Well, what's interesting with this MiCA framework, for a lot of things in finance, if you're an insurance broker or a broker-dealer and different things, if you're licensed in one country in the EU, it passports to all the other countries, which means if you're a French insurance broker, you're also an insurance broker here. You don't have to do that. Currently, with digital assets, that's not the case. You have to do every single country's thing to be a digital asset service provider. MiCA will solve that by having, if you're at the right regulation level, like in France or Germany, then that's going to passport to the rest of it. This is why Binance has set down its headquarters in Paris. It's why Crypto.com set down its headquarters in Paris. It's why Circle put its headquarters in Paris. I'm from Paris. And also, Coinbase is either going to do Paris or Berlin, because they know in 2024 MiCA is going to hit, and they will. Binance has been trying to get the Germany license for years, and they still don't have it. In 2024, they will have it automatically because they already have the license in Paris, because MiCA will make that happen. So I think it's a huge opportunity for Europe to get ahead of this and to be fair in the regulation, innovation-friendly regulation in this space, because the U.S. is just being an idiot right now about this subject. So they're losing all of the innovation, I think, potential there. And so I think that's a great opportunity to move forward and really have this space to address the fraud issue or the problem. Your financial regulators exist to protect you from crappy financial things, bad investments or bad actors. So much more fraud happens outside of crypto than happens in crypto, but obviously the crypto stuff's getting lots of press because it is happening. The important thing to understand technologically is there have been no failures in the crypto of these things. It's all the human side. It's all the fact that you had a fraudulent founder of a major exchange putting money in his pocket. That's not a crypto problem. That's just a shitty CEO stealing from you. And that's no different than any other kind of company in the world where that's happening behind the scenes. Unfortunately, it's been happening in crypto, and so that has an impact on how we perceive crypto. So that's going to settle a bit. The regulation stuff's going to get more friendly in certain places and less friendly in others. Hong Kong just got pushed back out again by China to be crypto friendly, whereas you can't do crypto pretty much at all in China, in the mainland. But now, as of now, Hong Kong is much more friendly again, and they want it to be the hub. You will be amazed 18 months from now how the majority of Web3 is either in Paris or Hong Kong, hopefully in places elsewhere as well, because it is kind of distributed, but because of the regulatory friendliness, the companies themselves and the density of the stuff being founded is going to happen in these places, and most of it's running away from the US.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because I also see a great opportunity here for Baltic states, especially. We have good companies growing from these ecosystems. There's also Estonia was first with issuing the licenses to crypto companies and so on. Then it switched. The torch was passed. Let's say to Lithuania. We have done a great job in the last 5 years and landed big players like Binance and so on. And now finally in Latvia as well, we are working heavily to actually put some very interesting initiatives to becoming more and more friendly towards this ecosystem, like paying the base capital of the company with crypto, paying taxes with crypto potentially, and things like that. That could all be reality in addition to MiCA. And I believe there will be pretty good, who will take those good companies.
You have all the ingredients here to make it work well.
Yeah.
But you definitely need your government officials to push hard to make this as friendly as possible of a regulatory environment. And to encourage that, because you have all the other ingredients for lots of amazing things, like what Gravity Team has built here and others. I mean, Martin with Air Baltic coming up next, that is the only major airline doing a rewards program based around NFT at this point. They're one of the first in the space. Etihad is doing a thing, but it's not really the same. Those are great examples already. You could do even more in these ecosystems here and your neighbors, but you need to push for it because it's happening elsewhere as well. But you have the ingredients for Latvia to be a leader in this space if you fight for it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing about Latvia is it's small. So like it's easy to reach out to people because they're usually your neighbors or something, or you know their cousin. So you can actually get things going quite quick. You can act like a little startup, even when it comes to like governmental relationships. So I think in that regard, we should use this opportunity and try to really move forward fast.
Yep, and that's what we are doing. But since we are approaching the end of our conversation, I guess the last and the most important question, perhaps, there's a lot of hype. There's this great idea of decentralized finance, which there's no single point of failure, no single bank or no single entity can completely screw you over and so on. So that's a big hype. Obviously, billions now pouring in VC money. Anderson Horowitz is investing, I believe, $2 billion. They have $2 billion fund for actually Web3 sort of investments. And now you have emerging tech fund, right, investing in this space as well. And we see that those trends more and more.
We don't have quite that much money.
Yeah.
And there is some degree of hype. That's just how it is, right? You have established companies like Gartner doing hype cycles of all sorts of technologies the last 50 years or whatever, and you know this is the way it goes. So you will see thousands and thousands of attempts at building something. 80% will fail, maybe 90%, maybe even more. That's just part of the game, right? So you got to try and weed a little bit through it, pick and diversify across different utility cases, use cases, technologies, teams, geographies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think Ethan's point here was very, very, very precise, that you're saying you're still early in this, right?
I think that everything is still, if we define Web3 as this evolution of Web 1 and Web 2, which were these top-down versions of the internet that we all use today, I think a lot of stuff will be Web 2.5. It's a squish up between Web 2 things and Web 3, where you'll go to YouTube, which is centralized, very Web 2, but you'll make, a better example, Spotify. You can go to Spotify now, and you can connect a wallet, and you can get access to private playlists from artists because you have the NFT of that artist. Spotify is a pure Web 2 player. Pure centralization in that sense of what we know. Well, maybe not the infrastructure, it's a little more complicated, but we're Web 3ing it. That's the Web 2.5 place. It's still early. Everything Web 2 has to be rebuilt in a Web 3 way. That's super fun. To address the hype thing, it's just an issue of Web 3 at least, not crypto and other blockchain things that are pure crypto or DeFi or whatever. Web 3, we can maybe not about the hype, but the anti-hype. It does not matter what the price of a Bitcoin is. It does not matter how expensive a Bored Ape NFT is for Web 3 solutions to scale, because they're not based on a bear or bull market in crypto from a finance perspective. They're simply solving problems for you or building platforms for you or building tools for you. Obviously, the crypto markets, that's a different conversation. But in Web 3, it doesn't matter that right now we're in a bear market because everybody's building this stuff. When we come to a bull market, meaning much more positive, then they're just going to be able to do even more because the market's more positive. But all the people building the cool stuff right now and advancing on this are doing it. So maybe there's hype. There's also kind of the anti-hype. But you can just, if you see opportunities in this space, the time is now to be doing it.
Good. Mārtiņš?
Yeah, I think there's cryptocurrencies and Web3 are definitely easily enabling hype because anyone can create a token. And then your neighbor buys that token, and then he sells it at higher price, and then he buys a new car, and then you're like, holy shit, he doesn't do anything. Why does he have a new car? I want that token as well. And crypto and Web3 kind of enables that. So there is the hype part of it, of course, and it comes in cycles. Right now, we are not in a bull market cycle, so I wouldn't say it's a big hype, but of course, still it exists. But I think there's also this downplay of what this technology can actually do because of, as I said before, of how hard it is for people to understand what money really is and how it actually works. It's easy for us to understand, I don't know, electric cars. It's like, hey, you see a gasoline car, it's like it exhausts, it has exhaust, it's polluting, and you can crash with it. Like, yeah, electric cars, we should invest in it. Like, it's easy to understand it. But when it comes to money, we don't really understand it. No, like, most of us don't understand how money works. Like, how many people know that, for example, the world trade, 90% of world trade is in US dollars. At the same time, while 15% of the GDP is only coming from United States. So you have nothing against the United States, but one country that has only 15% of the GDP has 90% of the monetary power. I don't know if it's like perfect world in which we're living in, and yeah, it is a very complicated problem, but it's insanely important. and it's insanely important to solve it. And those who will find solutions to it, everyone will be rewarded greatly for it. So. Right. So in that regard, many people don't really realize that how important it is to build better money, and yeah, so therefore the hype is justified.
Right. Thank you guys so much. It was a very interesting conversation, and hope also everybody learned something from your experiences and so on. So thank you so much, and yeah, let's meet here next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.